Every project should have a tool directory. That's my opinion. It's so helpful. So what is a tool directory? It's a dedicated space within your project's repository that houses commonly used scripts and utilities. These scripts automate repetitive tasks, manage the code base, and ensure consistency in development practices. You can think of it as your own personal toolbox, readily accessible and organized for maximum efficiency. So why should you have one? There's several reasons, really. The scripts that you put in the toolbox can speed up development. Frequently used scripts stay readily available, eliminating the need to rewrite them from scratch or hunt for them somewhere else. This saves you valuable time and keeps you focused on your core tasks at hand. They help you avoid mistakes. Consistent scripting patterns within the tool directory minimize the risk of errors and typos. Standardizing common tasks reduces the potential for unexpected outcome and ensure reliable results. They also help promote consistency. By sharing your tool directory with the rest of your collaborators, you establish a common set of practices for handling repetitive tasks. This fosters a unified development workflow and reduces confusion, especially among larger projects or with newer developers. They also help improve maintainability. Well-organized and documented scripts within the tool directory make it easier for future developers to understand and contribute to the project. It acts sort of like a central repository of knowledge and automation, helping benefit the project's long-term health. So how do you implement a tool directory? It's actually really easy and simple to get started. You create a dedicated directory. I usually call mine /tools in the root of my project. You start small. Begin by adding the scripts you use most frequently. This could be anything from code formatting or linting to deployment automation or project setup routines, depending on kind of the scope of your project. You should document your scripts. Clearly document each script's purpose, usage instructions, and any relevant inputs or outputs. There are tools that maybe make this point a little bit more, a little less critical. So if, like, for example, if everyone's writing Go and you're writing these tools in Cobra, Cobra kind of takes care of that for you. Also, if you look at like the Cobra command file, it's very easy to kind of parse what's going on as long as you know Go and you can see the inputs and outputs. And then you should also share this with your team. Encourage your collaborators to contribute their own scripts and also utilize the existing ones that you've written. This fosters a collaborative environment and expands the toolbox for everyone's benefit. So I have a couple examples of tool directories that I'd like to show you. I'm going to swap over to VS Code. And so in this project, this is a Flutter app that I have been working on with some videos. So if you'd like to learn how to make a Flutter app, I've got a playlist that walks through building a reflective journal. This is a really simple tool, but it's really useful. So this project has a CSV asset, and the asset holds quotes and the author of those quotes. And I grouped them together by source as I was going through and finding them. So I would find quotes by Marcus Aurelius, and I would put those together. And then Seneca, and I put those quotes together. The app itself gives you a, not necessarily random, but there is a quote every day, a different quote every day. So it won't be the same as the last one. It won't be the same as the next one. In fact, there are 94 quotes. So every 94 days, you should repeat your quote that you are on today. So the point that I'm getting at here is, like, I needed to shuffle these because we were building the app and day after day it was Marcus Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius. And while that's fun and all, it would be nice if it was shuffling the quotes so you weren't seeing everything by Aurelius, then everything by Seneca, then everything by Epictetus. So we shuffled those, and I wrote a little script in a tool directory. So you can see right here it's under /tool/shuffle CSV Dart. Let's make this a little bigger. That's maybe too big. So yeah, we have a little tool, and all it does is it reads that file. And this is written in Dart, and the reason I wrote this in Dart, the Flutter app, Flutter uses Dart. So this was a language that worked fine for the problem that we were trying to solve, and it was readily available on everyone's machine because they're building a Flutter app, so they have Dart accessible. So you have this main method. It's just like a standard program. Execute some stuff and finish it. So in our case, we load the CSV file into memory as a string. We do it synchronously. You could do it async if you want. They're little tiny scripts generally, so I try to keep things simple and often do things synchronously. We split the lines, the header of the CSV. Let's pull up that CSV really quick. The header is author and quotes, so these are like the table titles. So we don't want to change those. So we strip out the header, and then we strip out the quotes. We take the quotes, we call shuffle. It's just a method in Dart that shuffles an array, shuffles a list. And then we stitch back together our finished string. So we put our header back in, we spread our quotes, and then we join those on a line break. And then we overwrite the contents of that file. And then, we print a little message that says, hey, we've successfully shuffled the CSV. Really straightforward, but it's a really great tool that made this really nice and easy. The other alternative is coming into this, grabbing lines, moving them around manually, or doing it programmatically when the app starts, and then that would break our functionality of having the same quote come up 94 days, because we would be shuffling the quotes every time the app started. We couldn't get a consistent order. So we wanted a random order, but we wanted it to be consistent, and writing a tool solve that problem for us really well. I have another example. So I have my blog is, this post is actually inspired by one of my blog posts, but my blog is a Hugo app, and Hugo's a static site generator, and there's some boilerplate that I need to produce every time I want to create a new blog post. So I have a make post script. I probably should document this more. This is very legible to me, but a lot of people, myself included, actually struggle with Bash from time to time, or piping together commands from the like Unix commands. It's often not very clear, and that's, I think, because a lot of people don't really receive any formal training or formal experience in Bash outside of a couple roles. But I guess what I'm getting at is, like, this one's just Bash. Bash was a perfect solution for what I was trying to do. I thought about writing it in something like Python, because Python seemed like a good fit at the time, and I just realized that A, I would have to deal with Python 2 versus Python 3 on machines, and then B, there's a chance that the machine that this runs on doesn't have Python, but almost every machine that this would run on would have Bash. So generally, if you do something like this, a good practice is to use a hashbang, a shebang, at the top of the file, indicating how this is supposed to be ran. In our case, it's ran as a bash script. And then we have a function here that takes in the first argument and then lowercases it. So we grab the name. You know what? It actually might be useful to see how this would be used. So if I go into Sandalwood, which is this project, and then I say something like tool make post, every project should have a tool directory. And that's the blog post that this video is inspired by. I run this, it lowercases the name, and then plugs the original name in right here as the title. So we can take a look at this. It might actually be useful to see what the output looks like. But it looks like this. This is the output. We don't get all of this for free. A lot of this is boilerplate. Like you can see here, tags to do, permalink to do. Actually, now that I think about it, I could probably generate this permalink. Description is empty. The outline, this is an outline I use for all of my blog posts now. I fill this out before I actually write the content. It helps me just kind of make sure that I'm conveying the main goal of the post. So this is boilerplate. It doesn't get changed by this script, but it's something that I make myself do every single time. So you can see here, like I filled this out. And it doesn't generate the contents of these strings for me, but it puts the outline in place so that I have a fresh thing to look at. So let's run this really quick, and you can see an example. So we're going to call make post. We'll take a string. Flutter is great. Let's go with that. Okay. There's no indication that this was created, so maybe that's something that I would want to do. But you can see Flutter is great.md. Oh, the date's busted. I'll have to fix that. The permalink doesn't change. Here's the title. Here's the boilerplate. And, I would come in and fill this out. And then I would write my blog post down here. Okay, so those are a couple examples of tools and how you would use a tool directory in action. There are other open source projects that do this. I do this with most of my projects, if not all of them. Basically, anything substantial has a tool directory at some point. And I've seen a lot of other people do this in open source too. So one thing I do want to talk about is like the language for those tools. Language selection for the tools is important. You want to use languages that are good for scripting purposes, but you also want to choose something that the development team has installed on their machine and they're comfortable maintaining code in. For example, like I mentioned in the Flutter video, where we add the CSV shuffling, I actually mentioned in the video that we could write this in Go, and I started to go down that path almost. But then I realized that the people following along would also have to install Go just for this one thing. Plus, it's a Flutter video series. There's a good chance that they don't know Go and may not even want to learn it. Plus, writing it in Dart helps reinforce what we're learning in Flutter or Dart. Bash is also a fantastic choice for small scripts. It's readily available in most development machines and is fairly easy to write. However, Bash can get complicated pretty fast, and it's not something most developers have a ton of experience with, like I mentioned. For longer scripts, consider using the primary language that the repository is built with, or reach for something fairly easy to pick up, like JavaScript. So ultimately, incorporating a tool directory into your project is a simple yet powerful way to boost your development efficiency, consistency, and overall project health. It's a practice that scales with your projects and fosters a collaborative and organized development environment. So why not give it a try and see how your own personal toolbox can empower your coding journey? Thanks. Happy holidays.